This will sound very strange, but it is predicted that NASA's helicopter on the planet Mars will crash on August 19th, 2022. Today's date is August 6th, 2022. The post date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is made ahead of time, as well as does this time-stamped email by Google and this forensic notes document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. This video is an extremely profound and interesting video and is one of the most important videos on this channel. People have their worldviews, and so people will tell themselves in their own mind how and why I was able to know these predictions in advance. However, I assure you that your assumptions are not correct. I have spent the last 5 years working from morning until night, learning about God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. I assure you that I know better than you the reasons for how and why God has given me a voice through these predictions. In the description box below this video, I will leave a link to a video titled God's Purpose for These Predictions. It would be an enormous shame for you to learn about these predictions, but not know the reasons for how and why God has given these predictions. In other words, unless you watch this video, God's Purpose for These Predictions, you will have missed the point of this video and the point of this video channel. Make sure you watch the video, God's Purpose for These Predictions, either before or after watching this video. In Bible prophecy, the color red is associated with the Antichrist, and the red planet Mars is symbolism for the Antichrist, and the Antichrist, the basketball president, wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. From the Bible, the number 23 is symbolism for God's judgment, and Jesus said that before the rooster would crow twice, Peter would deny him 3 times, which hints at the number 23, and in the end times period, the faith of God's people will be tested by the Antichrist through whether or not they deny Jesus. The Antichrist will come to power through the replacement of Kamala Harris after she will die in a plane crash. It is predicted that 2 times 3 days after NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars will be the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. This 2 times 3 days hints at the number 23, a number God uses to point to the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. 2 times 3 days is broken down into 3 sets of 2 days, and 2 days after NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars, it is predicted that there will be a dirty bomb explosion in Manhattan, and then 2 days after that, it is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack, and then 2 days after that, it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. In addition to the post date of this video and the things that will be explained in this video, here are the emails and forensic notes PDFs that prove that these predictions are being made ahead of time. In addition to the fact that NASA does not pre-announce when its flights will be, and therefore I am predicting that there will be a flight on this particular date, August 19th. But as we can see here on NASA's website, the last status update was on July 13th, and in it, it is saying that the flights are postponed until August. In the update, it says that it's postponing the flights due to the dust storms in this particular time of year on Mars, and that the flights will likely resume at the beginning of August. This is what the article says right here. It says that the dust levels are expected to subside later in July, and Ingenuity is expected to be back in the air around the start of August. And so it is interesting that NASA's last status update on July 13th is saying that the helicopter will likely fly again in the beginning of August, yet I am predicting that NASA's helicopter will crash on August 19th, which is mid to late August. NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars on August 19th. 7 days and then 17 days after the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis, Missouri. In the account of Noah's flood in the Bible, God gave Noah a 7 days warning to load the ark. After this, the flood began in Genesis 7:17. And then Noah's ark came to rest on Mount Ararat in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month. In other words, this 7 days and then this 17 days count is one reason why NASA's helicopter will crash 7 days and then 17 days after this prophetic flooding. In the Bible, a goat is Antichrist symbolism. In a minute, I will explain how the prophetic sign on August 2nd, the death of the GOAT, greatest of all time, of baseball broadcasting, Vin Scully, whose son died in a helicopter crash, is the important prophetic sign in the middle of this 7 days and then 17 days between the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in St. Louis and the day that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars on August 19th. This extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis is Noah's flood symbolism. There is too much to explain, and so it will be explained in another video, the prophetic significance of the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis on July 26th. In the account of Noah's flood, the 7 days warning was then followed by 40 days of increasing flood waters. This is why it is predicted that 7 days and then 40 days after the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in St. Louis will be the day that the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years since 1918 and the year of Spanish flu will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls on September 11th, 2022. Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism. It symbolizes the power of water moving over the earth, and it engenders a perennial rainbow, which is God's sign regarding judgment in the account of Noah's flood. And this historic barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls. The barge is Noah's Ark symbolism. Noah and his family were rescued before the coming flood judgment. And so from the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis on July 26th, it is a symbolic 7 days warning to the day that the GOAT of baseball broadcasting died, followed by 40 days to the day that the historic barge will crash over Niagara Falls on September 11th. And this barge will crash over Niagara Falls right next to an island named Goat Island. This 7 days followed by 40 days parallels the account of Noah's flood. On April 4th in 2016, on the date 4/4, which hints at the number 44, during a baseball game, the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the acronym GOAT and how it stands for greatest of all time. This in fact became a national news story. It was ironic how the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the pop culture term GOAT. Vin Scully was explaining the batter's story of his encounter with the GOAT of basketball at a shoe store. The GOAT of basketball being Michael Jordan, who wore jersey number 23. The 44th president, the basketball president, and GOAT Antichrist also wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. This is why the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT on the date 4/4, which hints at the number 44 and the 44th president. At the time, Scully was 88 years old. 88 is 2 times 44, which hints at the second presidency of the 44th president and return to the White House of the basketball president and GOAT Antichrist. The GOAT Antichrist is from Chicago. In a ceremony at the White House later that year, in November of 2016, a few months after the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT, the GOAT Antichrist awarded the Chicago Bulls GOAT of basketball Michael Jordan the Medal of Freedom, and also awarded the GOAT of baseball broadcasting the Medal of Freedom. This was just days after the Chicago Cubs finally broke their curse of the Billy Goat sports curse. At the time that the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT, he was in his last and record 67th year of broadcasting for the Los Angeles Dodgers. A big part of Scully's story is how he broadcasted for 67 years. It's what makes him the GOAT. The number 67 hints at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which was captured by the Jews during the Six-Day War on the date 6/7 in 1967. 67 is 6 and 7, and it symbolizes the unification of man with God. God, as Jesus, will dwell with man in the Messianic age in the 1,000 years of peace and will rule from the Temple Mount. In ancient Israel, 2 goats were used in the ritual on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar. The 2 goat antichrists, Pope Francis and Barack Obama, will be defeated and vanquished from the Temple Mount at the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ on the Day of Atonement in 2024. In Bible prophecy, the number 666 is symbolism for the Antichrist, and the 2 antichrists are described in the last and 66th book in the Bible. The date that the GOAT of broadcasting explained the term GOAT on the date 4/4 in 2016 was the 66th anniversary of the UN Trustee Council's decision to recommend that Jerusalem be made an international city on the date 4/4 in 1950. When the world will soon make Jerusalem an international city, it will be the biggest transgression against God's will as described in Bible prophecy. The Antichrists will preside over the UN body that will enforce this international status for Jerusalem. This is why the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT in his last and 67th year of broadcasting. The GOAT was explaining the story of the batter at the time and his encounter with the GOAT of basketball at a shoe store.
John Jay had a big thrill. He was in a shoe store buying some shoes, and who came in? Michael Jordan, and he probably bangs it into left field. Up with it there is Carl Crawford. Jay, a big turn and holding with a 2-out single. And when he talks about meeting Michael Jordan in the shoe store, he refers to him as the GOAT. And you say, GOAT? Why is Michael Jordan GOAT? No, he said, GOAT, greatest of all time. You ever heard that? Well, that's what John Jay brought to the dance, GOAT. All right, a 2-out single, and here's Derek Nars.
The batter's number was 24 because the Antichrist will be defeated on the Temple Mount at Lord Jesus Christ's second coming in 2024. God uses pitchers on the pitching mound to symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. The pitcher on the pitching mound at the time that the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT was player number 22. The number 22 is symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist, which Bible prophecy says will be used by the Antichrist and Antichrist system to persecute God's people. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist would have been the Tav mark described in Ezekiel chapter 9. The letter Tav is the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd of 22 books in the Bible, that have a total of 22 chapters. Taking the mark of the Antichrist, which is the snakebite thing, will lead to genocide, which is why the GOAT of baseball broadcasting explained the term GOAT through a story about Michael Jordan, while the pitcher number 22 was pitching 22 years after the only Major League Baseball game that the GOAT of basketball, Michael Jordan, played in. It was an exhibition game between the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs that ended in a tie score of 4-4, which hinted at the 44th president from Chicago. Jordan hit the RBI that made the score 4-4. This was the same day that the Rwanda genocide began. It was exactly 23 years before Trump launched missiles into Syria in response to the use of chemical weapons, which was an act of genocide. God frequently pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the 44th president, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. That's why from the day that the GOAT of basketball, who wore jersey number 23 for Chicago, played this baseball game that ended up being tied 4-4 and hit the RBI that tied the game at 4-4 in Chicago, where the 44th president is from, and the day of the Rwanda genocide, it is exactly 23 years to Trump's missile launch that was in response to an act of genocide. The 44th president, Antichrist, will be the leader of a genocide. Trump launched the missiles into Syria in response to an act of genocide in 2017 on his 77th day in office. It was 77 days after his inauguration, and on his inauguration day, Trump was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, after having won the election by 77 electoral votes. And on the day of Trump's election, the leader of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, had been in office for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. The reason why Netanyahu had been in office for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days on the day that Trump won by 77 electoral votes, and why on the day of Trump's inauguration, Trump was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, is because in the book of Revelation, in Bible prophecy, there are 3 sets of 7 judgments from God. Also in the book of Joshua, Joshua led the Hebrews around the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment after the Hebrews had marched around 7 times over 7 days while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets, which is 3 sets of 7, which is why Trump is God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, and why Trump's presidency trumpeted the coming judgment from the Antichrist that will lead a civil war genocide. Trump will die from a heart attack a prophetic 3 sets of 7 days after the GOAT of baseball broadcasting died. This is another prediction. Archaeology proves that the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho collapsed due to an earthquake. The GOAT of baseball broadcasting died on August 2nd, the date 8/2, which was in turn exactly 370 days after the 8.2 magnitude earthquake in Alaska in July of 2021. This was the 7th largest earthquake in U.S. history. Again, the walls of security collapsed on Jericho due to God's judgment from an earthquake after the Hebrews marched around the walls 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets, 3 sets of 7 judgments. 370 days hints at 3 sets of 7, and this connects the 7th largest earthquake, an 8.2 magnitude earthquake, to the death of the GOAT of baseball broadcasting on the date 8/2. 8.2 and the date 8/2 both hint at 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And so the 8.2 hints at 4, and the date 8/2 hints at 4, which gives us 44, which hints at the 44th president Antichrist. Also 8/2 hints at 8 times 2, which is 16, which is 4 times 4, which also hints at the 44th president Antichrist. And so the 7th strongest earthquake connects with 370 days, which hints at 3 sets of 7, which in turn connects to the death of President Trump with 3 sets of 7 days. As I will explain in this video, the death of the GOAT of baseball broadcasting also connects with 23 days to the predicted death of the 49th Vice President, Kamala Harris, which will lead to the rise of the Antichrist through her replacement. And the earthquake was in Alaska, the 49th state to join the Union. 49 is 7 times 7, and the walls of Jericho fell due to an earthquake after 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. The GOAT of basketball, Michael Jordan, and the GOAT Antichrist wore jersey number 23. As the GOAT of baseball broadcasting was explaining the term GOAT, the batter, player number 24, hit the ball off of the pitcher on the pitching mound for a single that was fielded by the outfielder, player number 3, which hinted at the upcoming 3rd term for the GOAT Antichrist that will be defeated on the Temple Mount in 2024. Also, the score in the game at the time that the GOAT of baseball broadcasting was explaining the term GOAT, and at the time that outfielder player number 3 was fielding the ball, the score was 3-0, which is more confirmation that the GOAT Antichrist will serve a 3rd term. Also at this time that outfielder player number 3 was fielding the ball when the score was 3-0, this happened in the 3rd inning of the baseball game, which is a 3rd witness to the prophetic relevance of this number 3 that is confirming a 3rd term for the GOAT Antichrist. This is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of 2nd and 3rd and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required, and this is what makes this true and not a product of one's imagination, and what makes it different and unique than everything else on the internet that is claiming to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. It is predicted that U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash due to a bird strike, and after this, she will be replaced by Barack Obama. Michelle Obama will replace Kamala Harris, and Barack Obama will replace Michelle and become the president again on October 14th, 2022. Obama is the basketball president, and he wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. The 22nd president was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 23rd presidency of President Harrison. Likewise, Barack Obama, who wore jersey number 23, will serve non-consecutive terms after the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. This is why the crash of NASA's helicopter on Mars will be a major prophetic sign that is pointing to Harris's plane crash 2 times 3 days later on August 25th. 2 times 3 days hints at the number 23. Goat is Antichrist symbolism. The GOAT Antichrist that wore jersey number 23 will replace Kamala Harris after she will die in a plane crash. Harris will die in a plane crash 23 days after the GOAT of baseball broadcasting died, whose son died in a helicopter crash. And Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash 2 times 3 days, which hints at the number 23 after NASA's helicopter will crash. The The number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, as from the Bible, it symbolizes God's judgment. From the Bible, the number 23 also symbolizes God's judgment, and 23 is the 9th prime number. God pairs a certain and very limited number of numbers together in his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, in order to develop his big picture of signs. His true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required, which is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and what makes it different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. If we think about it, the simplest way to provide second witnesses to confirm things is through pairing a certain limited number of numbers together. God frequently pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to serve as second witnesses that confirm the signs and connections and to point to Barack Obama. One reason being the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 became president in 2009. Another reason being the only grandfather-grandson presidents were William and Benjamin Harrison, the 9th and 23rd presidents. This is why on the day of the historic first flight of NASA's helicopter on Mars, on April 19, 2021, Kamala Harris visited an electric bus company in High Point, North Carolina, to promote her and Biden's $2.3 trillion infrastructure and jobs package. This was exactly 9 years after U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, in his Air Force Two plane, made an emergency landing due to a bird strike in California, the state that Kamala Harris represented as senator. This 2.3 trillion hints at the number 23, and thus this paired with the number 9 in this 9 years connection to the 2.3 trillion. In the most central prophecy in the Bible, in Daniel chapter 9, the timing of the arrival of the Antichrist is after a symbolic 69 weeks. In this same prophecy, the timing of the coming of the Christ is also after this period of 69 weeks. Exactly 69 weeks before Harris was in High Point to promote 2.3 trillion was Christmas Eve and Christmas morning in 2019. The news reported that there were an uncanny 9 earthquakes in California in this 24-hour period. This is why exactly 69 weeks after these 9 earthquakes in California, Harris promoted 2.3 trillion on the 9th anniversary of Biden's emergency landing in California, the state Harris represented. Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. Barack Obama's name in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. Barak is the word for lightning. Bama is the word for high place, which in the Bible is a metaphor for heaven, as, for example, in Isaiah chapter 14, it is said that Lucifer fell from the high place, a metaphor for heaven, and in Aramaic, the language Jesus would have spoken, the word for from is O. Hence, Barack Obama is lightning from heaven. This is why Kamala Harris visited an electric bus company in High Point, North Carolina. Electricity symbolizes lightning, and High Point symbolizes high place, which symbolizes heaven. And so her visit to an electric bus company in High Point symbolizes when Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, which is exactly what will be symbolized when Kamala Harris will fall from the sky in a plane crash and then be replaced by the Antichrist, Barack Obama. She promoted 2.3 trillion in High Point on the historic day of NASA's first helicopter flight on Mars. This is why it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars, a prophetic 2 times 3 days, which hints at the number 23, before Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. God pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the 44th president, the basketball president, that wore jersey number 23. 4 times 4 months hints at the number 44. This is one reason why it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars exactly 4 times 4 months after Harris promoted $2.3 trillion on the same day that NASA's helicopter made its first historic flight on Mars. 4 times 4 months pairs with 2.3 trillion to hint at 44 and 23 and confirm the signs and connections. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction was made ahead of time, as does this timestamped email and forensic notes PDF. If you are skeptical, please email me and I will forward these to you. Here is the email and forensic notes PDF that document the prediction for the historic barge on the Niagara River and how it will crash over Niagara Falls on September 11th. As can be seen here, it was known for over a year, since July of 2021, that the barge would crash on July 26, 2022, but as was just explained, instead July 26th was the day of the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis, and from this day it is 7 days and then 40 days to the day that the barge will crash over Niagara Falls. And again, NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars 17 days and then 7 days after the extremely prophetic, historic, and destructive flooding in the city of St. Louis. Alright, this is the end of part 1 of this video. If you found the information in this video to be interesting, and I assume that you did, you will definitely want to watch part 2. The information will continue to build on itself and become more and more amazing. The information is also extremely important. Make sure you watch part 2. Part 2 goes under a different title. Part 2 is titled Prediction Revelation Chapter 12 Sign equals NASA's helicopter will crash on Mars on August 19th. I will leave a link in the description box below this video to part 2. Please leave a like and a comment on this video and share this video everywhere with everyone you know and everywhere in social media, and don't stop sharing it. And if you are Christian, know that it is your obligation to share it everywhere you go. Ezekiel chapter 33. The watchmen that don't warn others of what God is communicating is coming. God will hold them responsible for the sin of others. Some social media sites have a maximum length for videos that can be posted, and so I need to cut this video into 2 parts. Click on the link to watch the remainder of this video. You can also find this link in the description box below this video. Make sure you watch the remainder of this extremely important video that is posted on a different channel than the one you are watching now. The link to the rest of this video is in the description box below this video. Hopefully you at least found this introduction video to be interesting, and if so, please leave a like and upvote the video, and please consider sharing the video.